Hi, guys. Welcome back to the show. This is your host, Young Brando, live from Los Angeles. We are going to continue on another Christie's Hong Kong auction. The few auctions that are happening as part of the spring season in Geneva are taking place in the next few days. So, if you have any questions about those, about any specific lots from those auctions, feel free to send them to me right here. But otherwise, I think we are all set. I'm going to send the link. Feel free to also just simply join me. I mean, it's the link is pinned there as well, but here's the auction that we are going to look at. Important watches from Christie's Hong Kong, featuring the Triazza collection, which, by the way, is an auction a collection that they had presented on before, that they had sold part of it in an earlier auction. So maybe we can start with looking at that a little bit, um, and then move on. I wanted to share with you first, though, some exciting news about the channel. Some of you may have already seen it on my Instagram. I'm going to have an interview with the CEO of Karlsruhe und Söhne, Robert Punkenhofer. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a very nice conversation, I think. I really like his particular outlook, his vision, his highly cultivated sense of aesthetics. I think um, this is not usually the profile of a CEO for a watch company that we see, even though I feel like this is exactly what we should, in fact, see. Because, God knows the world has enough bankers and investment whatevers and, salespeople who get into those positions and who lead those brands. More power to them. God bless their hearts. But the world of horology certainly needs more people like Robert Punkenhofer, and I look forward to talking to him about watches, about horology, and about the sort of vision he has for this new and exciting independent brand based in Vienna, which is not exactly the heartland for contemporary horology, right? So that I'm really going to dig deep into learning about his challenges, but also the unique perspectives that he brings from out of the margins. So that conversation is going to be on Friday at noon my time, which is 9 p.m. Central European time. It'll be 3 p.m. For East Coast daylight savings time as well. I know it's not necessarily convenient all at once for everyone, but we are going to keep the conversation to 60 minutes, maybe 75 minutes. It will be very focused. It is something that you can watch on your own time and come back to. So I'm sure that you will enjoy it. Let's talk about the Triazza collection a little bit. This is a collection that they held as part of an auction before. It was very much Patek heavy collection, and they literally named it a dream collection because it included the platinum 2499/100, the only one in private hands, and that had once belonged to none other than Eric Clapton himself. A 2499, once again, that same second generation perpetual calendar chronograph, in this case double signed by Tiffany and Company, third series, of which only 6 are known. 2523 North America. 2523 is an early Patek Philippe World Time, the double crown version, right, where you have one crown at 3 o'clock to set the time and one crown at 9 to actually cycle through the city's ring. And the Triazza collection had an example of that with a map of North America in Cloisonné enamel at the center, of which apparently only 3 are known in yellow gold. And also another North America Cloisonné enamel dial, Patek World Timer, this time 605 Heure Universelle, which is the pocket watch version. Another Patek Philippe pocket watch with a sector dial that you can see here. So a Patek collection, but not one that you necessarily see everywhere. Certainly not one that is decked out with the predictable, usual suspects that you can somehow acquire through your special connections or on the secondary market. That is the stainless steel open face observatory tested pocket chronometer with tourbillon, regulator, lever escapement, sector dial, and additional gold case enamel dial and hands, manufactured in 1924. I feel sometimes I'm over explaining. So if I'm overstepping, please feel free to just let me know, because I don't talk a lot about pocket watches on this channel. Sometimes I want to explain even the simplest things. Open face simply means that the watch face, the face of the pocket watch, does not have an additional cover, right? For whatever reason, I've come across people who think it's somehow all floating in open air. Obviously, that's not the case. But this is really a beautiful two-tone silvered sector dial with Arabic numerals at quarters and small seconds at 6. Fantastic Geneva seal movement, beating inside with finger bridges. This is the 605 HU from 1950 with the North American map rendered in miniature painting at the center of the dial in the Cloisonné enamel style, where the drawing is basically established gold threads that are as thin as a thread of hair, and then the colors are basically baked in by crushed enamel, which ends up oven fired in the process multiple times. Again, keyless, meaning that it's wound on the crown. Open face, meaning that it doesn't have an extra cover. And this is that map of North America. Let me actually take this call. 1 second, guys. Sorry, guys. It happens. I don't do this very often, but thank you for indulging me, my viewer, the single soul viewer. Thank you for staying. We were talking about the Triazza collection, which was put up on auction, which went under the hammer earlier at Christie's Hong Kong, but apparently they put some in reserve, including that beautiful sector dial pocket watch, the pocket watch world timer, the 65 heure universelle, and this 2523 in yellow gold, which is the double crown version, an early example of that internal or inner cities ring. As you know, and you should know because I talked about this quite often, the 1415, of course, had the cities or the 24-hour as a rotatable bezel. It was with these references, such as the 2523, that the complication was taken into the face of the watch. And the early iterations actually had an additional crown rather than pusher, like it is executed these days. And apparently this is only one of the three in yellow gold with this particular Clausone enamel dial, which is drawing a miniature painting of a North American map, 1955. And of course, these are all Louis Cotier's devices that were integrated into a pocket watch first, and then 1415, 2523, and even the roots of the travel time complication that Patek uses today are in Louis Cotier's invention. So very influential indeed, all the way into our day. It's a beautiful 2499 in platinum. That was once owned, that was once part of Mr. Slowhand's collection, Eric Clapton's collection. At another 2499, this time in yellow gold with the Tiffany & Co. double signature. A lot of heavyweights. Today we are looking at important watches auction, which includes the second part of the Triazza collection, among other watches. This is a live auction that is going to take place over 3 days, also in Hong Kong, also conducted, also curated by Christie's, and it's a little more diverse. It's not just Patek, and Patek, however impressive it is, but there are also some very interesting pieces that are from early independence, some unique examples like this Yves Klein, Audemars Piguet, Royal Oak, the Owl, 25594, which is a day date with a moon phase indicator. And the tapisserie dial is rendered in that unique shade of blue, which Yves Klein made into his own and, in fact, redefined in so many ways the art of painting as an experience in depth and space. So it's always fascinating to see how that color that is now registered as IKB, International Klein Blue, but that was once simply devised in a Parisian workshop, has made its way into the watch world. There's something to be written about that, and at least a video to be made for sure. Yes, without further ado, let me just drop the link again, and we will start. Since I made my lame attempt at a joke earlier, said went fishing, let's start with this beautiful salmon dial. This is lot 2241, a Rolex day date with the reference number 18238. 18238 again is comes highly recommended at this channel, as you know. I love myself on 1803. I think the 4-digit references are great, but it would take ages if you are looking for an example that has a tight bracelet, that is in good condition, and that's exactly the way you like it. But there are some great deals to be had. 18238 is not only closer to our time, is not only a little bit closer to contemporary Rolex, it's also very advantageous for those among you who think it's a hassle to reset the day and date. And it can be. I understand that. For me, setting the date, setting the day is a way of playing around with the watch, is a way of engaging with the watch, is a way of bonding with the watch, as cringe as that sounds. For me, it's part of a ritual, so I don't mind it. But for your reference, 18238 is the first Rolex day date reference with the so-called double quick set, which means that you can actually cycle through both the day and the date and adjust them by the crown. So it's perfect for that. I think it's always even more stunning to see a salmon dial or a copper dial or an actual dial produced out of a pink gold blank in contrast with white metal, but it just works here too. In this case, of course, as you can see, as you can probably tell from the striations, that's locks, by which I mean it is actually a hardstone dial of coral, and it somehow works. I think it's very warm, it's very cool, and it's absolutely very unique. Once again, because we are mostly used to see shades of pink used on the dial with watches that are in white metal, whether that is platinum or stainless steel. Here you have it in yellow gold with a nice healthy bracelet from early 90s. The piece actually comes apparently with its original warranty papers, product literature, presentation box, as well as its outer packaging. And the pre-auction estimate places the value of this watch in excess of 51,000 US dollars. Hey, Raphael, how are you doing, my man? I know we keep joking about it. You know, it literally looks like locks. And the way locks has gotten expensive, my man, it might as well go on a gold watch. So I approve. I approve. But we do joke that this is like, lox cream cheese. In fact, we had recently, let's see, we had a platinum piece. I think it was on Antiquorum just last year. Yeah, let me bring that up, and that's just absolutely stunning. I mean, it was just different. And because of the picture quality, you might not see it here, but on their own website, you could see the striations even closer, right? It really looks great on platinum or white gold, but those are even more rare and therefore even more painfully expensive, as you can see. The estimate was already verging on $250,000 in euro. So this is a little more reasonable, with the lower end of the estimate resting right above 50,000 in US dollars. Since I put it in my thumbnail, I also want to talk about this watch a little bit. This is the 25594 ST. I love these sorts of complicated Royal Oaks from a bygone era. Of course, the perpetual calendar versions um, from the beginning on were mostly fit into the case of the jumbo, right? 39 millimeter diameter, and early on it was even thinner than 8 millimeters, and then it went up to 8.25 millimeters in thickness, so that it could actually ensure a minimum acceptable amount of waterproofness. But other complicated Royal Oaks, such as the dual time, day date, and moon phase indicator, like this one, came in the 36 millimeter case. So 25594 is in many ways a very interesting reference for that reason, because not only does it give you aspects of a prestige complication, at least in terms of everyday utility, it gives you a little bit of a romantic vision in terms of tracing, or tracking rather, the phases of the moon at 6 o'clock. It is a beautifully balanced dial and has this slightly anthropomorphic look to it, because it does look literally like a face, but oftentimes, because of the particular aperture of the moon phase, it's been likened to an owl. And I think that's right on point as well. This particular dial was not actually the Bleu Nuit Nuage 50. I think it was actually the Yves Klein blue, the kind of cobalt electric blue that you sometimes see in these tapisserie, in these Royal Oak dials. And it has also patinated over the years to take on this purplish hue, which I really appreciate. And actually, it looks great on stainless steel. I think these look gorgeous in two-tone, actually, which is, of course, SA 25594 SA, two-tone and the gray dial. The piece just really pops. I mean, I think it just looks even more integrated in a way than an average Royal Oak, right? This is a two-tone example that I talked about on my Instagram, which is at Young Brando. So please feel free to follow me there as well. But I really love this particular two-tone execution of the model. Not that it looks any less impressive in stainless steel, but I think that's a great option. This particular example was apparently initially sold in Japan in 1998. And it has a very unique blue dial. And the pre-auction estimates puts the value of this watch around $30,600 in US dollars. I don't disagree, Raphael, especially if you are talking about the day dates. But here's the thing. If you're just looking for a champagne dial day date, there's some great deals to be found again, especially in that generation, 1803. They're great. You know, there's a reason why so many of them were scrapped over the years, because when the market is down, vintage Rolex day dates really trade right above their scrap value. But when they have these sorts of special dials, these rare dials, then they trend for 2, 3, 4 times as much, depending on the rarity of the dial. And I know some people are very picky about this kind of stuff, but please do realize that when you roll back the years in Rolex, there's really no surefire way of knowing if that dial is original to the watch, right? The best thing that a lot of people can do, if they are really incredibly precise scholars, and even those horological scholars make mistakes, they can tell you whether that dial is correct for the model and correct for the period. There's just simply no resource that can tell you with absolute certainty whether the dial was actually born with the watch. So if you actually are really chasing after some special kind of dial for a day date, it's much better to find something that has a healthy case, tight bracelet, everything else according to your standards and within your budget, and then you chase after the dial. Because this is one way of making sure that you go broke, bidding after some exotic Rolex watch on a public auction in Geneva, in New York, or in Hong Kong. I mean, you just don't do that. Unless money is no object, then enjoy yourself and, make sure you visit some casinos on the way as well. Just spread the wealth. Lot 2201 is about a brand that is rising once again from its ashes. Initially when I heard that the LVMH was going to resurrect the Daniel Roth brand, I was somewhat skeptical, but I'm glad they actually went to Daniel Roth himself, got his blessing, involved him at least as a figurehead, as an OG, as someone who should be respected, who should be in a way put on the pedestal, because he was an absolute pioneer of independent watchmaking. And again, I was talking earlier about the need for having people in the world of watches who have a vision, and Daniel Roth had it in spades. And you really wouldn't know, because not only did he play the most important part in reviving Breguet for our time, where they were mostly forgotten, where they were either remembered for their pocket watch tourbillons from a bygone era, or some tool watches that they supplied to Aéronautique Navale for the air forces of the French military. No one really cared about Breguet. This guy basically reinvented it. And then he invented a whole other brand, ventured out on his path when the only other name was Gérald Jantat, maybe at that time. And Jantat, even though he is trained as a jeweler and trained as a watchmaker as well, I think, at least at a rudimentary level, is of course mostly known as a designer. And that was what he was interested in, right? He wasn't really taking part in making watches. So for Daniel Roth to do something as crazy as this in 1988 and make his own watches, and really make his own watches, right? The ellipsocurvex shape, now everyone is remembering and memorizing the word. This is a very unique case shape, and he designed it, he went with it, and he insisted on it, maybe to his detriment, but he wanted to do something different, and he wanted to really create watches that expressed his will. And he was, he had to give up his own brand in the process because he simply didn't have money, couldn't borrow more from the bank. The Hourglass bought the majority stake, and after the Asian crisis, they had to give up the brand as well, and it went to Bulgari, and the rest is history, most of it unfortunate, but this particular piece is an early example from the era when they had just been transferred to Bulgari. This is the S247, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, S247 from around 2003, with the rather rare 5-link bracelets. I very rarely see these pieces on the bracelet, and I think it goes particularly well with the chronograph. I adore this case shape, double ellipsis or ellipsocurvex, and this is a chronograph that is built on the base, on the eboche of Zenith El Primero caliber 400 as well, which, of course, actually outsourced not only Rolex between 1988 to 2000, but also these kinds of prestige brands such as Parmigiani Fleurier and Daniel Roth. 3 register with the date between 4 and 5, a 2-tone silver dial, gray pinstripe guilloche, and then Breguet frosted hour track with white gold beads or dots for every 5 minutes, and strikingly heat blued hands, both for the arrow hands, hours and minutes, and the chronograph hands. That's anchor like counterweight on both the continuously running seconds hand and the centrally deployed chronograph hand. It is really a thing of beauty in stainless steel case and bracelet, with a sapphire exhibition case back with the DR500, which is Daniel Roth's modification of caliber 400 for all to see. The piece does come apparently with an additional Daniel Roth crocodile strap, stainless steel déployant clasp, its guarantee certificate, product literature, presentation box, and outer packaging. And the estimated value of this watch, according to the pre-auction estimate, is right around 5,100 in US dollars. Kia ora, Mike. Nice to see you. Again, if you want me to talk about any of these particular watches, which I might skip once every so often, feel free to send in a super chat with the lot number, and I will be more than happy to go back. Lot number 2203 is Breguet Tourbillon, executed in two-tone with platinum with a pink gold mid case, hand engraved on the back with the date and inscription of that first patent established by Abraham Louis Breguet. This is reference 3450. Off-center dial for hours and minutes. That's tripod seconds hand, which measures the seconds every 20, which measures the seconds from 0 to 20 with each hand. As you know, this was also Daniel Roth's implementation. He basically had finished the design of the wristwatch Tourbillon before he left Breguet, which was lost to Chomet Brothers and transferred into Investcorp, Bahraini investment group. But Daniel Roth continued the development of the Tourbillon and collaborated with both Breguet and Lemania, which was supplying the actual movement. And these early examples of the Breguet wristwatch Tourbillon are just as much a credit to Daniel Roth as they are to the Breguet brand itself. As you can see, you have the Claude Paris guilloche decoration at the center of the main dial, and also a barleycorn pattern for the rest of that silvered gold blank. An open worked exhibition for the tourbillon cage with a majestic mirror polished bridge, oversized blued screws, the scale itself mounted on the gold dial with heat blued screws as well. A beautiful piece. The base plate is engraved for additional visual interest. The case band is fluted in its entirety and given further distinction with the accent of that pink gold. Of course, the by now traditional teardrop lugs. Breguet and movement number, as well as the two invisible signatures that flank the Roman numeral at 12 o'clock. Again, an incredible piece with a matching platinum tank buckle. It does come with a certificate of origin and original warranty papers. This is a Breguet two-tone tourbillon, executed in platinum and 18-karat pink gold, reference 3450 from 1993. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of the watch at its lower end in excess of 25,500 US dollars. Thank you, Basil. Thank you. Lot 2206 is the reverso minute repeater. Again, one of my favorite subjects. So I'm gonna try not to beat a dead horse once again. When Günther Blümlein was orchestrating with Harry John Belmont the revival of Jaeger-LeCoultre as a brand in the 90s, their primary focus was using the prestige and iconography of that rectangular Art Deco design. And they did that specifically by adding complications to it and, in fact, using that rectangular swiveling case as a canvas to flex their horological muscles. So they basically released 6 different models over the decade. It all started with the 60th anniversary model, the 60e, which had a pointer date and power reserve indicator, which was for the first time any kind of complication added to the Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso, and the floodgates were opened by that. And what followed was the tourbillon, the minute repeater, the géographique, which was the dual time, the chronograph with the retrograde minutes hand, which they just revived in a new form, and the perpetual calendar. The minute repeater is very important part of this particular revival. As you can see, it has this as a distinction on the primary dial. The slider is on the left hand side, on the left flank of the case. It's one of 500, if I'm not mistaken, as you can see. I believe the minute repeater was introduced in 1994. And it's not, to be honest, it's quite small, right? Even though it's the Kantai case, but it's not really, it doesn't really have that impressive of a sound, to be honest, which is kind of a shame, but I'm sure it was quite challenging as it is to execute it in that particular form. But there's not much room really for them to work with when it comes to this particular complication in the reverso case. It's not necessarily the most impressive. Thank you again, Bezos, for that super sticker and for reminding people to upvote. I really appreciate it. All the 6 anniversary editions, special editions, limited editions in the 90s were executed entirely in 18 karat pink gold, and their movements too were actually fashioned out of 14 karat pink gold as well. In this case, unfortunately, you don't really have a great view into the movement, of course, beyond this. But thankfully, the good folks at Christie's have shared the chime with us, so you can see the whir and hear the sound. I mean, it's respectable, and I actually like the pacing, which sometimes some minute repeaters feel like they're rushing through. I think this is a mechanism that delivers it properly, but you just don't have enough of a soundboard, I think, in that relatively small rectangular box. And I think the movement is basically only one half of that case as well. In either case, this is the lot number 2206, the Jaeger-LeCoultre limited edition, one of 500 minute repeater from 1994. Both, however, in 1998, as you can see here. And the pre-auction estimate gives us the value of this watch at its lower end as a minimum 20,000 US dollars. Lot 2207 is another beautiful Jaeger-LeCoultre reverso, which actually has this dial mechanism which exposes a painting, right? We always lust after reversos in terms of how the casebacks are decorated. In this case, in this limited edition, one of only 10, there's actually Gustav Klimt painting, a miniature version of a Gustav Klimt painting, the Kiss specifically, that you can reveal by using this particular slider. Reverso à Eclipse is what it's called, one of only 10 in white gold, comes with a matching déployant clasp, its original set of accessories, and it is number 1 out of 10. So very, very important indeed. That micro painting is actually hand painted grand feu enamel. For the dial of the present watch, the enamel artist has faithfully reproduced in miniature Gustav Klimt's masterpiece, The Kiss of 1907-08. The piece also happens to be the highly coveted and prestigious number 1 of 10, offered in superb like new condition. It is accompanied by its full set of accessories. Each painting is a unique and entirely hand-painted work of art, painstakingly reproduced using the technique of miniature enamel painting, which is fired at high temperatures, a technique perfected at Jaeger-LeCoultre by its master enameler, Miklos Merzel. The Reverso Eclipse is in harmony with the grand tradition of secret watches. It is the first watch to have a truly twin-level dial, one composed of shutters that can be viewed at any time, and the other which is enameled and may remain the owner's personal secret. In this case, this is a painting reproduced in miniature by Gustav Klimt from his golden period, first exhibited under the name, under the title Liebespaar, a pair in love. The lovers, apparently, is what one calls it in English. As a preview of our conversation on Friday, the actual painting actually now hangs in the Austrian gallery in the Belvedere Museum in Vienna. So this is the Reverso Eclipse, which has shutters that actually cover up this dial, and you can use this slider, this wheel, to expose the secret painting, which is Gustav Klimt's Kiss, in this case, from 2008. Lot number 2207 is valued before the auction in excess of 51,000 in US dollars. Lot 2208 is one of my favorite watches by Vacheron Constantin. This is a double retrograde watch, very fitting for this particular year when the brand actually used the Watches and Wonders exhibition to display their retrograde complications. In this case, you have a retrograde minute hand and a retrograde hour hand. This piece is in 18 karat white gold, 36 millimeter in diameter, and it has a solid gold dial, which has an engraved map, a reproduction of Gerardo's Mercator's maps of Europe, Africa, and Asia. This was an entire series. In this case, basically, the dial is engraved and then filled in with black enamel for the drawing. And I love the mechanism on this watch because it also pays tribute to the caliper, of course, right? You know, of course, the instrument that's used widely in sketching and map making, etc. So to use that for the hour and minutes, I think is an absolute stroke of genius. In this case, at 1 o'clock, The hour hand snaps back. So at 1 o'clock, they actually meet and are closest together. And at 12:59, they're the most apart because the minute hand snaps back at the top of the hour to 0. These drooping lugs, highly stylized and double-stepped, and otherwise a perfectly round 36 millimeter white gold case. Again, thanks to those crowns, wears much bigger. This is the Vacheron Constantin Platinum. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I kept saying white gold. Platinum 36 millimeter Mercator piece. Reference number 43050 000P. Solid gold dial with an engraved map that is then filled in with black enamel, depicting Gerardos Mercator's map of Europe, Asia, and Africa on the 400th anniversary of his death. The piece is matched with an 18-karat yellow gold dépliant that has that half Maltese cross on it. The pre-auction estimate places the value of this watch at around 30,600 in US dollars. Yeah, this entire series that Vacheron Constantin released in a variety of metals on the 400th anniversary of Mercator's passing are all incredible. I love the retrograde hands. I love the maps that are depicted. Some of them are very colorful. This particular example is very stately and serious. I kind of like them both, honestly. At lot 2209, we have the Vacheron Constantin Régulateur. This is the regulator dial version of the early 2000s Malt. Malt still exists within Vacheron Constantin's catalog, but it is now a product line that only consists of tonneau-shaped watches, whereas, in fact, predominantly in early 2000s, the Malt series were these round pieces with substantive bezels and thick lugs that were splaying out, that would flare out, and that were in this stylized stepped design that actually reminded you of falcons or eagles' talons, which of course plays with the symbology of the brand, which is the Maltese cross, Maltese falcon. I think you get it. Regulator dials were, of course, very important from 18th century onward. Regulator clocks were the centerpiece of every manufacturer, every watchmaking center and workshop, where they were used for their precision as reference to set and synchronize all the clocks, pocket watches, and whatever else within the premises. Regulator clocks were also used in railway stations because, of course, the synchronizations of the conductors' pocket watches were literally a matter of life and death in the 19th century. And basically, regulator dial wristwatches pay homage to those eras of mechanical watchmaking where the centrality of the minute hand was of vital import. In this case, you have an off-center dial for the hour hand at around 12, which is indicated with an oversized Roman numeral. You have at 9 o'clock a 24-hour hand, which can be set independently because this is a dual time watch. You have a small second subdial at 6, which is framed in gold and encircled with a subdial for a pointer date. And centrally deployed, you have a sword hand for the minute, which moves along a railroad track on the periphery of the dial. You have an additional pusher here at around 10 o'clock to advance reference time. The piece comes with a matching Maltese cross tank buckle, and this is actually an officer style hinged case back, so it's inscribed Vacheron Constantin Genève on the back, but it can be actually popped open so you can take a look at the mechanism as well, which is not incredibly impressive. I guess that's why they didn't bother to take a photo of it, but it's still decently decorated. This is 2209, reference number 42005, Vacheron Constantin Régulateur, which is a dual time watch with a regulator dial and a chronometer as well. In the Malt case, 18 karat yellow gold, 38 millimeter. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of this watch right over $10,000 at its low end. Raphael, always specify what you're asking about because I can't keep track. But if you're asking about this watch, it is 38 millimeters. You remember from a few years back, Vacheron Constantin, as part of their Métier d'Art series, had a set of mask watches. And here is actually all 4 of them listed back to back, with the box set listed separately, which I think is a little bit lame. But then again, you know, since they are not selling them together, I guess it's only one lucky person who will get to keep the box. From the Champion Collection, Vacheron Constantin presentation box made for the Métier d'Art Les Masques edition from 2008, a set of 4 watches. The box set and the full accessories are estimated to go well over $1,000 US. But let's look at those watches one by one. At lot 2010, we have an example which depicts an antique mask from Japan, from the Barbier Müller Museum. The piece is all digital expression, so it has hour, minutes, day, and date, through 4 openings located at 4 corners. Well, at, let's say, in an imaginary dial, this would be 10 o'clock. You have the hour pointed digitally. At 2 o'clock, you have the minutes pointed digitally. At 5 o'clock, you have the date pointed digitally. And at 7 o'clock, you have the day with the mask at the very center. And as you can see, the dial actually is in the smoked sapphire. So you have this semi-open worked exhibition of the mechanism as well, which is a nice detail. And on the way, on the back, you actually get to peek into the movement. A full gold decorated Vacheron Constantin rotor weight is part of the charm, with a matching déployant clasp with the Maltese cross. This was in fact made in 2 series. In 2007, there were masks from China, Alaska, the Congo, and Indonesia. The second set was made in 2008 from Japan, Mexico, Papua New Guinea, and from Gabon's Kwele people. This particular one was from Japan. They were all chosen from Geneva's famous Barbier Müller Museum, reproducing life-size masks from their permanent exhibition. This is an antique mask from Japan with day, date, as well as hours and minutes digitally expressed, 40 millimeter yellow gold case. Métier d'Art Le Masque model from 2008. This is the 86070J-9348 at lot number 2210. The pre-auction estimate at its lower end puts the value of this watch in excess of 51,000 US dollars. In pink gold, you have a mask from Mexico. Again, the same principle of a digital expression of time, hours, minutes, date, and day. An exhibition case back, a matching déployant clasp. I think the cases are beautiful too, with substantive bezels to frame these beautiful dials, with stepped and slightly extended lugs, and with kind of semi-transparent dials that give you a peek into the mechanism, which is very cool. This is lot 2211, and the pre-auction estimates similarly puts its value at the minimum in excess of 51,000 US dollars. $22.12 is a mask that belongs to Gabon's Kwele people. The case this time is in 40 millimeter, 18 karat white gold. And the pre-auction estimate similarly puts the value of this watch at around $51,000. Lot 2213 is once again in white gold. This time it has a traditional mask from Papua New Guinea. And its value is similarly estimated to be in excess of 51,000 US dollars at lot number 2213. Sorry, my apologies. Lot number 2213 is actually in platinum. So the Papua New Guinea version is in platinum, not in white gold. The one that's depicted the mask from the Gabon, the Kwele people, that was 18 karat white gold. Let me grab a cup of water. All right, I'm right back. This is a tourbillon from Harry Winston. In 18 carats white gold and set with diamonds on the entire case, not only the bezel. The tourbillon cage is set right at 6 o'clock with an heat blued seconds hand that pivots on its bridge. The piece has a 5-day power reserve, which is quite impressive. It is a 43 millimeter case, was produced as part of a limited run of 10 pieces. It does come with a matching Harry Winston buckle, which is also set with diamonds. Self-winding movement that you can glimpse onto from the back. The movement was made by Peter Speakmarin, who goes nowadays by the name of the Naked Watchmaker. I really appreciate the work he does on his website, replete with technical information and very explanatory photographs and diagrams. It literally does what it says, what it names in the title, unless, of course, you are being naughty and you are thinking of unspeakable things. By naked, he really means that he lays bare, he reveals, he lifts the cloth from over these movements and dissects them, deconstructs them for you. explaining its each and every step of the way. It's a very beautiful website. It is a very educational website, especially if you're a visual learner. It's unbeatable. And this tourbillon movement, the 110-hour self-winding tourbillon movement, was devised by Peter Spiegmarin for Harry Winston, encased in 43 millimeter 18 white gold, entirely set with diamonds and with a very unique kind of floating lugs, beautifully decorated watch. At the lower end, the estimate puts the value of the watch in excess of 30,600 in US dollars. Yeah, look at the crown guards, the case band. It's incredible. At 2218, we have a rare titanium Panerai tourbillon with equation of time, displaying also the times for sunrise and sunset, and includes a sky map of Hong Kong, sunrise, sunset, displayed on the chapter ring, the seconds, the equation of time, the date, the month. This is the entire box set, apparently. This is the case back with the sky map of Hong Kong. The tourbillon. Sky map on the case back, the power reserve indicator, and the tourbillon. Tribute to Galileo, made in titanium. The tourbillon case visible from the back through this cutout. This is lot 2218, Luminor 1950, tourbillon equation of time, a limited edition that Panerai released as L'Astronomo, 50 millimeter case. Comes with its full set of accessories, which in this case means quite a bit. Lot number 18 at 2218 is valued at around 64,000 US dollars. At lot number 2220, we have a monopusher chronograph by Roger Dubuis, an early example of Roger Dubuis' work. Probably does not strike you as anything that the brand produces these days. They have a very different direction under the Richemont patronage, let's put it like this. When it comes to the early chronographs of Roger Dubuis, they were really, in a way, challenging Patek. I mean, this was a guy who put his own name on the dial and who emphasized that he was a watchmaker from Geneva, right? Horloger Genevois. So he was literally trying to outdo Patek, beat Patek at their own game, out Patek, and he created some of the most beautiful chronographs that harkened back to the so-called Tasti Tondi, the 1463s. And in this case, it's, of course, takes after Patek's vintage monopusher chronographs. It has a 2-register look with Breguet numerals. The chronograph hands are heat blued. That goes for the 30-minute totalizer for that chronograph register, as well as the centrally deployed seconds hand. The baton indices and Breguet numerals are applied white gold, and the piece has a pearled minute track, like these gold beats that are one for each minute, a larger one every 5 minutes. You also have a continuous running second subdial at 9 o'clock, the tachymeter on the periphery of the dial. The piece is submitted to the test at the observatory, at the Besançon Observatory, and the Lemania CH27 base is hand finished, assembled, and regulated to the highest standards expected from watches that are deemed worthy of the hallmark of Geneva, which you can see on this bridge. This is lot 2220. Roger Dubuis monopusher chronograph in a 40 millimeter 18 karat white gold case with an ivory colored dial, a Geneva seal Lemania CH27 hand-wound chronograph movement. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of this watch at its lower end around 20,400 in US dollars. At lot 2221, we have an A. Lange & Söhne limited piece commemorating the re-establishment of the Lange manufacture in 2000, an anniversary Langematic model with an enamel dial with Roman numerals, Roman numeral 12 painted in red, the alpha hands for hours and minutes, the oversized subdial for the seconds, all the hands heat blued as if to jump right off of that white enamel dial, matching platinum tank buckle, and you have an exhibition case back with a gorgeous micro rotor movement with an oversized off-center micro rotor, which is both in gold and with a platinum supplemental weight, frosted and embossed, and partially skeletonized as well. Once again, a whole range of different kinds of finishes, from ribbing to perlage to frosting to the heat blued screws to the mirror polish countersinks on the chatons in which the rubies are set to the freehand engraving on the balance cock. It's really incredible. Of course, you can see some reflections on the anglage as well, even though this is not necessarily the greatest angle and the best photograph. These early Zaxomat movements were truly amazing, if you ask me, if only because of the oddity of that oversized micro rotor. This is the Langematic that was released in 2000, 37 millimeter platinum case, one of 500 pieces for the 2000 commemorative Langematic model, reference 302025. The piece has a pre-auction estimate, which puts its value at around 35,750 in US dollars at minimum. We have another limited edition Lange at lot number 2222. This is the 1815 moon phase, made in a limited edition of 265 pieces in 2010 for the 165th anniversary of Erlang und Söhne. The case is made in their proprietary alloy of honey gold, which is very striking and which is somehow between it's really like between yellow and pink, I want to say, but it is a very unique alloy. You have a rosette like decoration, guilloche decoration in the middle, and a moon phase at 8 o'clock, off-center seconds at 4 o'clock on a subdial, and heat blued alpha hands. These pieces were released in 2010 in a limited run of 265 pieces as a tribute to the founder, F.A. Lange. 3 different commemorative editions were released, all in 18 karat honey gold. These were the Turbograph, the Tourbillon Datograph pour le Mérite, and the Langewan Tourbillon. This is perhaps the most accessible piece among those, with the moon phase at 6 o'clock. Sorry, 8 o'clock. This is the Arangonzone, the 1815 moon phase in a 37 millimeter 18 karat honey gold case, one of only 265 pieces made. Reference number is 212053. At lot 2222, the pre-auction estimates sets the value of this watch at around 35,715 US dollars at the minimum. At 2223, we have the early generation of the datograph in pink gold. A few very unique things about this watch. First of all, it has a déployant clasp in matching 18 karat pink gold. These usually are special ordered. Most Lange watches by default come with those tank buckles, which are great, which are pretty substantial for what they are. But the déployant clasps almost always need to be special ordered. The famous L951.1 piece. This particular version is a limited edition, one of only 20 pieces. Because the bezel is set with baguette cut diamonds, the datograph, Lange's flyback chronograph, which has changed the game at its release in 1999 for high horology hand-wound chronograph with its in-house movements, which almost depicts an entire urban landscape and which basically serves as a lexicon of movement finishing. This is the reference 815031, one of only 20 produced in pink gold with the black dial, and that's bezel that is set with baguette cut diamonds. As you can see from the absence of the power reserve indicator, this is based on the earlier movements, and it is a smaller case. Lot 2223 has a pre-auction estimate, which puts its value in excess of 125,000 US dollars at the minimum. Lot 2226 is an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak chronograph in 39 millimeters. This is the reference 25860, originally sold in 1999, rendered in all 18 karat yellow gold, case and integrated bracelets with Petite Tapisserie dial, applied AP initial logo right under the triangle at 12 o'clock. The indices are and the hour and minute hands are loomed. The oversized chronograph registers are all framed with gold rings, with the continuous running seconds at 6, a 30 minutes counter at 3 o'clock, and a 12 minutes counter at 9. The date window is right between 4 and 5 for this self-winding chronograph, which is built on the base of a Frédéric Piguet 1185 caliber. Beautiful piece at 39 millimeter, all in yellow gold. This is the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak chronograph, reference number 25860 BA, sold initially around 1999 at lots 20 to 26. The pre-auction estimate puts this watch at around $23,000 as far as its value goes. At lots 20 to 27, we have an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak in reduced size. This particular version is 36 millimeter as opposed to the 39 millimeter Royal Oak Jumbo. Reference number is 14790. In this case, we have it entirely executed in stainless steel, once again bought at around 1999, with a tropical dial. The white gold bolts that secure the case and set the octagonal bezel have patinated just a healthy bit and taken on this yellowish hue that plays well with the tropical dial. The case and the bezel all seem quite healthy, with the watch having preserved its finishing, which is of course based on the contrasting aspects between grain brushed and mirror polished surfaces. Lot number 2227 has a pre-auction estimate which puts its value at around $20,000. That's US dollars. At lots 2229, we have a very rare version of the white gold chronograph in 41 millimeter. This is a piece that is seen on the wrist of L. Macpherson in the new Royal Oak book, From Iconoclast to Icon, where she's posing with her son, and she has this particular piece on her wrist. This is 26 to 40 BC, 41 millimeter white gold case with an integrated bracelet, and where you have a brushed finish elsewhere, in this particular piece you have a frosted finish. So the surface of the octagonal bezel has that frosted finish. The bracelet, except for the chamfers, has that frosted finish, which gives it a very striking and unique appearance. It also has a unique, gray dial with the Grande Tapisserie pattern and black chronograph registers for some contrast and increased legibility. This is lot 2229 for this rather rare Audemars Piguet Royal Oak chronograph, reference 26240, entirely executed in 18 karat white gold with a frosted finish. The pre-auction estimates puts the value of this watch in excess of 70,000 US dollars. Number 2230 is a piece that was exhibited as part of the 50th anniversary celebrations of the Royal Oak. This is a Royal Oak Perpetual Calendar 25654 from around 1997, which has that Tuscan dial, which has that Florentine finished dial in a distinct shade of blue. Incredible texture, great contrast with the subdials for the perpetual calendar, and the stick markers, as well as the pencil hands, are in white gold for a little bit of contrast from that blue dial and to echo the steely tones of the rest of the watch. These Tuscan dials are relatively rare, and I think they really are striking, especially in contrast with white metals, whether we are talking about stainless steel or platinum or white gold. This particular example is relatively early. As you can see, it has no leap year. So uses one of the earlier versions of the perpetual calendar module. It's in great condition, and it's believed to be one of only 800 examples of the 25654 made in all metals, less than 30 with this particular dial, and also in total only 272 pieces were made in stainless steel, period, with any kind of dial. It's a very exclusive version of a neo-vintage Royal Oak perpetual calendar, especially owing to its exotic dial, especially owing to its unusual Tuscan dial. This particular piece has a pre-auction estimate, which at its lower end puts the value of this watch in excess of 150,000 in US dollars. You also get a certificate which attests to this watch's presence at the 50th anniversary celebrations at Audemars Piguet, which might be an interesting keepsake. That was lot 2230 for this unique Royal Oak in stainless steel and with a Tuscan dial, perpetual calendar 25654. The pre-auction estimate is in excess of $150,000 at its lower end. At lot number 2233, we have a gold Speedmaster from the late 60s. These were produced right after they were presented, after similar examples were presented to the astronauts as a tribute. This was a run of 1,014 pieces. The first two watches in the series were presented to President Nixon and Vice President Spiro Agnew. They couldn't accept those gifts, so those two examples still reside in the Omega Museum. The 28 further examples were presented to the astronauts that took part in the Apollo missions as part of a gala dinner in Houston, and Omega also made a limited run of 1,014 examples, which were engraved on the back in honor of Apollo 11's moon landing, the first watch worn on the moon. These pieces are rendered in 18-karat yellow gold case and bracelets with the burgundy bezel inserts for the tachymeter and these black fixtures, the black hands and indices on the dial, which is great in terms of its contrast from the stepped champagne dial. The pre-auction estimates puts the value of this watch in excess of $15,000 minimum. That was lot 2233. At lot 2235, we have a flat 4 Kermit. Rolex released in 2003 these 50th anniversary Submariners with the unique green aluminum bezel insert. As you can see, this is one of those early examples with the flat 4 rather than a sharp 4. Obviously, when it comes to these sorts of anniversary models, in this case, we're talking about 16610 LV. It's usually more desirable that they come from the anniversary year. In this case, Y serials with the flat 4 bezel are the most desirable. Flat 4 bezels can be found in F serials too. Those two are desirable. The serial number range is not specified in this case, but you can actually inquire about it, as you can see in the notes, which you can do by calling Mr. Bigler or writing to him with this contact information. This piece is presented in new old stock condition with its full set of accessories, and the pre-auction estimate sets the value of this watch in excess of $20,000 at the lower end. Thank you, Gundog. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for being here. Please hit the like button while you're here. At lot 2236, we have the famous Tridor Rolex day date, the Rolex day date that incorporates the three different shades of gold, white, red, and yellow, with champagne, slightly pink tinted champagne dial, and a diamond set bezel. The dial 2 is diamond set at the factory with brilliant diamonds, with baguette cut diamonds at 6 and 9 o'clock, and the brilliant diamonds completing the rest of the indices. The piece, of course, comes on its presidential bracelet and the official warranty card. The case back sticker for reference number 18349 is still intact. The watch is in an impeccable condition, preserving all the hallmarks of its original finish. This is the 18349, the Tridor Rolex day date on the matching Tridor presidential bracelets from around 1992. The pre-auction estimates puts the value of this watch in excess of $12,700 US dollars. Lot 2239 is reference 18139. This is the 18 karat white gold day date on the matching president bracelets and a diamond set bezel and lugs. As you can see, it also has a special plaque at 6 o'clock, which is inscribed with the name of the brand, with the signature of the brand as well, as part of the bezel. A dégradé blue dial, which really gradiates into black on the periphery of the dial. Baguette set at 6 and 9 o'clock, and set with brilliant diamonds for the rest of the indices. This is lot 2239. 18139, 18 karat white gold Rolex day dates on a matching presidential bracelet and a factory diamond set dial, bezel, and lugs from late 80s. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of this watch in excess of $25,500 at the minimum. At lot 2242, we have the so-called Wimbledon in a two-tone execution with the domed smooth bezel in yellow gold and on an oyster bracelet, of which, of course, the center links are in 18 karat yellow gold as well. This is matched with the crown, the handset, as well as the coronet at 12 o'clock, and of course, actually the loom, the frame for the loom plots at 9 o'clock as well. Of course, you have the date at 3 o'clock, since this is a date just 41, reference 12, 126303, two-tone date just in a combination that is often referred to as Wimbledon, smooth domed bezel, and the oyster bracelets for this date just 41. This is the lots 2242. The pre-auction estimates puts at its lower end the value of this watch at around 11,500 in US dollars. At lot 2243, we have a Rolex Submariner in one of its iconic iterations, 5513, with a gilt dial, meters first. Gilt dials are glossy, and the writing on these dials is kind of rises in relief because of the particular mode of inscribing these pieces, producing those kinds of dials. They can be quite charming to some. I prefer the matte dials myself that came after, but these are more desirable in the market. They are worth certainly a premium. In this case, the piece comes on a matching riveted oyster bracelets, which is period correct for this Rolex Submariner 5513 at lot number 2243. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of this watch at the minimum around 23,000 US dollars. At lot 2244, we have an iconic vintage collectible Rolex, the so-called Steve McQueen, also called Freccione, due to the arrow-like 24-hour hand. That means little arrow in Italian. This is lot 2244. A model that came into some sort of mainstream attention as well since the release of the Black Bay Pro, which is largely modeled after this original Explorer 2, the reference 1655. The 24-hour hands were apparently initially executed in a shade of fire red, and you can see it from the contemporary catalogs. I published a few pictures on my Instagram before. I'm not going to fish it out now, but feel free to look for it on my Instagram account, which I'm posting in the chat. Feel free to subscribe and follow. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. I'm here with watch content on a daily basis. And while you're at it, please hit the like button as well. That helps a great deal. These 24-hour hands have all aged in their own way. Often they have faded into this distinct orange color, as you can see here. Sometimes they have ended up looking rather yellow, which is the color that the Black Bay Pro uses, the Tudor Black Bay Pro uses. And other times they have completely turned white, which the collectors have taken to calling albino. This particular example looks almost like the platonic ideal of a vintage Rolex Explorer 2, save for perhaps the some parts of the 24-hour fixed bezel being smudged off, but that's not a problem for me. I think the watch overall looks great for its age. I like it. This is lot 2244. I like a little bit of an imperfection, and this watch is perfect in its own way. Lot 2244, the original Rolex Explorer 2, reference 1655. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of this watch right around 15,300 US dollars. At lot 2245, we have a Milgauss 1019. This is a silver dial example in 37 millimeter with a smooth bezel and a matching oyster bracelet. The lume on the dial, I think, has aged pretty beautifully and evenly, even with the hands, to this eggshell-like patina. The silver dial looks relatively spotless, and the red arrow seconds hand is a nice accent that picks up the writing of the model name as part of a three-liner branding right under the coronet. This is the Rolex Milgauss 1016. Sorry, 1019. Lot number 2245. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of this watch right around 15,300 in US dollars. That was the minimum at the lower end. At lot 2248, we have the 5-digit Rolex Daytona 16520. This was the first generation of the self-winding Daytona, which celebrated its 35th anniversary as an automatic chronograph and the 60th anniversary as a product line at Rolex this year. As you can see, with the slender indices as well as the particular dial layout, the current reference number has taken a lot after the first generation of self-winding Rolex Daytona chronographs. It was an anniversary after all, and 1988 was in so many ways very important for Rolex, if not as important as 1962. You might arguably say it was even more important. It was really with the integration of an automatic movement to Rolex Daytona that it started picking up, and we have ended up in this place where the Daytona has not only become the flagship model of the brand, but one of the most desirable watches on the planet overall. The early examples of the 16520 with the black dial had this defect in the lacquer paint used to apply the outer rings of the chronograph register. So they have very quickly turned into this slight brown patina, which Osvaldo Patrizzi, who was an important dealer and a leader in the auction world, having opened the wristwatch department for Antiquorum, he obsessed over these and he collected these excessively. So these Daytonas are usually known as Patrizzi dials, as the Patrizzi Daytonas. Between 1988 and 2000, Rolex Daytonas were powered by caliber 4030, which is itself built on the base of Zenit El Primero caliber 400, which of course has the claim of being one of the first, if not the first, integrated self-winding chronograph movements in the world. This is lot 2248 for stainless steel Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, reference 16520, Patrizzi. The estimate, the pre-auction estimate, puts the value of this watch at its lower end in excess of 20,400 in US dollars. Let me see. Okay, I think I can go through more or less half of this and then maybe have more in tomorrow's broadcast. Lot 2246 is the transitional reference 16550. This was the reference for Rolex Explorer 2 between 1655 and 16570. You can almost immediately distinguish it even with the black dial versions from the font on the fixed 24-hour bezel. This particular version was actually once retailed by Tiffany and Company. Very cool piece and a very cool detail to see that double signature. And I love the way that the luminous material, both on the indices and on the hands, have aged so beautifully and almost in a uniform manner into this eggshell tone. This is lot number 2246 for a Rolex Explorer 2, reference 16550 with a black dial, double signed by Tiffany and Company. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of this watch at its lower end in excess of 10,000 US dollars. At lot 2249, we have another example of 16520 with the outer rings having almost gained this copper-like shade, which makes them somewhat uniform, but also strikingly distinct from certain angles from this black dial. The caseback sticker is still intact for this watch, with the case having preserved its full texture and, by and large, the larger details of its factory finish. A watch in a very good condition for its age. This is once again lot number 2249, a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona reference 16520 with the black dial, all in stainless steel, from the era of the Daytona when they were built on the base of the Zenith El Primero caliber 400. The estimated value of this watch at minimum is right around 25,500 US dollars. At lot 2251, we have Rolex Cosmograph Daytona reference 116519. Before Oyster Flex bracelets were introduced, there was an option for the precious metal Daytonas. There were precious metal Daytonas that were presented on a leather strap with a matching déployant clasp. And a lot of these had what was called a racing dial, which means basically these oversized Arabic numerals radially placed around the hour track, as you can see here on this anthracite gray dial, which has beautiful red accents in the chronograph registers, which include those register hands as well. 116519 is, of course, rendered in 18 karat white gold with a matching tachometer bezel and those fixed end links which attach it to the leather strap. And here's the matching white gold déployant clasp as well. This is the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona in white gold on a leather strap with a racing dial in anthracite gray. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of this watch in excess of 25,500 US dollars at the minimum. At lot 2252, we have another Rolex Cosmograph Daytona. I'm covering today the important watches auction at Christie's Hong Kong, which is going to be held over 3 days at the end of the month, from May 26th to May 28th in Hong Kong, conducted by Christie's. The auction includes many pieces from the Triazza collection, which is comprised of some of the most unique Patek Philippe pieces historically. But at lot 2252, we actually have a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona from that same Zenith generation, from the mid-90s specifically. This is the Rolex Zenith Daytona, rendered in executed in 18 karat yellow gold with a diamond set dial and emeralds for the indices, emeralds for the hour markers. These pieces are, of course, these kinds of pieces are off catalog for modern production, as you know, and they were even more rare in the vintage and neo vintage era. So these pieces are very precious, very aspirational for a lot of collectors. Lot 2252, again, Rolex Cosmograph Daytona 16528 in 18 karat yellow gold with a diamond set dial, emerald indices. The piece has a pre-auction estimate, which puts its value in excess of $75,000 at the minimum. Lot 2253 is 16519. This is the same generation, but in white gold and presented on a leather strap rather than on a full bracelet. Once again, we have a diamond set dial, but this time we have rubies as the hour markers with Arabic numerals at quarters and the coronet at 12 o'clock, matching white gold clasp. The hallmarks on the case are quite crisp and legible, as you can see on the lugs from the back. This is the 16519, the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona in 18 karat white gold, presented on a leather strap and a matching deployant clasp from around 1999 with a diamond set dial, ruby indices. At lot 2253, the pre-auction estimates sets the value of this watch in excess of 53,600 at the minimum. At lot 2255, we have a similar piece, but this time from 2005. So running on the in-house caliber 4130. White gold Rolex Cosmograph Daytona on the leather strap with its matching white gold deployant clasp and a very beautiful Tahitian mother of pearl dial that is set with applied Roman numerals. A very striking look for the 116519 18 karat white gold Daytona on the leather strap from 2005 at lot number 2255. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of this watch at the minimum in excess of 28,000 US dollars. At lot 2256, we have a prototype dial for this particular stainless steel Daytona because it has the applied Arabic numerals rather than those slender baton indices that are loomed. What we have is the Arabic numerals for the stainless steel version, which is not a combination ever seen, since this is actually a prototype dial for the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona 16520 in stainless steel case and bracelets. The estimated value of this watch at its lower end is in excess of 100,000 in US dollars. If you have any requests, if you would like me to take a closer look on a watch that I didn't get to yet or that I skipped, please feel free to send in the lot number with a super chat, and I would be more than happy to dive into it with some horological and historical detail. At lot 2257, we have a Daytona Rainbow. This is the 116599R bow in white gold with that gradient gem set sapphire rainbow bezel. The meteorite subdials for the chronograph registers. In this case, we also have diamond setting on the indices, except for the quarters, which have the Arabic numerals, and 12 o'clock, of course, which has the Rolex crown. The Rainbow Daytonas have been discontinued, or at least momentarily retired, with the revision of the Daytona lineup. They have always been off the catalog pieces, of course, but for now they are unavailable. They might come back in a new shape or form in the new case with the new movement. No one knows so far, but for now, these kinds of occasions are the only opportunities to acquire one. This is lot 2257 for Rolex Cosmograph Daytona Rainbow in white gold with the unique gradient sapphire rainbow bezel, 116599R bow. The pre-auction estimates puts the value of this watch at around 255,000, more than $250,000 at the minimum. Lot 2258 is Rolex Cosmograph Daytona reference 6239 with the exotic Paul Newman dial, pump pushers, and a matching tachometer bezel on stainless steel. The condition of the case is very good. It's a very substantive case with defined lugs. Here's a glimpse into the Valjoux caliber 72 based movement. Black background with slightly patinated ivory colored chronograph registers, as well as the perimeter, the seconds track that is graduated for 1/5 of a second. This is the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, reference 6239, with the Paul Newman exotic dial at lot number 2258. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of this watch in excess of 100,000 US dollars at the minimum. Sorry about that. I really needed to take this. Here's an example of another Paul Newman exotic. This is lot number 2259. The reference number in question now is 6263, which means that we have screw down pushers as well as a bakelite insert for the tachometer bezel rather than matching stainless steel. And of course, this is an aesthetic that the 60th anniversary model, the newly introduced 126-500 LN, heavily borrows. This particular example is called an RCO dial, since you have a mere three-liner dial, only 3 lines of writing under the coronet, Rolex Cosmograph Oyster, Daytona writing in red, the Art Deco numerals in the chronograph registers, and the red accents for the seconds track. This is a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona Paul Newman exotic dial with the folded link oyster bracelets. The pre-auction estimates of this watch places its value in excess of 638,000 in US dollars. A very rare and desirable example of the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona Paul Newman with the exotic dial with a pre-auction estimate that puts the value of the watch at the lower end in excess of 638,000 in US dollars. At lot 2260, we have a gem set Audemars Piguet Royal Oak in the 33 millimeter case size. This is, at least on paper, significantly smaller than the so-called jumbo, than the 72 original, the reference number 5209, which has a 39 millimeter case diameter. In this case, we have a piece that is 33 millimeters in diameter. Thanks to the integrated bracelet design, these kinds of pieces wear a little larger. What we have in question is an 18-karat white gold model as well, so it will feel, thanks to that, a little more substantive too. Nevertheless, small is small, right? Maybe for some, less is more, but for others, this can be certainly a situation of less is less, even with the pavé diamond dial, emerald indices, and a diamond set bezel. That might still be the case, but this is a very striking and unique example of the 33 millimeter Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, fully executed in white gold with a factory diamond set octagonal bezel, as well as a diamond pavé dial with emerald indices. A reference 15054 BC from around 2002. The pre-auction estimate for this piece at lot number 2260 puts its value in excess of 15,000 US dollars. At lot 2268, we have a Cartier Crash from 2002. This is a piece that was made in that distinct 18 karat white gold case. Even the matching déployant clasp has a shape, a wobbly shape that takes after the unique form of the Cartier Crash that has many points of origin, many origin stories as a watch that has become incredibly aspirational in our time. In this particular case, you have the case of the watch also set with diamonds, with the cabochon on the crown itself also cut from diamond. In 18 karat white gold. This is lot 2268 for a Cartier Crash from early 2000s. 18 karat white gold, diamond set, made in France. Signed, made in France on the dial. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of this watch in excess of 76,600 in US dollars. At lot 2269, we have another example of the Cartier Crash in 18 karat white gold. In this case, we also have a 4-row beads of rice style bracelet accompanying it, matching it. Once again, the entire case band is set with rows of diamonds. Eighteen karat white gold case, 18 karat white gold bracelet for this Cartier Crash from 2022, which comes with its full set of accessories at lot number 2269. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of this watch at its lower end in excess of 76,600 in US dollars. At lot 2271, we have another Cartier piece. This is the tank asymétrique from a limited run of 100 pieces in platinum, made by Cartier Paris, with this beautiful rosette guilloche dial, silvered, with printed Arabic numerals that alternates with stick markers or baton markers, heat blued sword hands, and the Paris signature at 6 o'clock for this asymmetric tank. The crown set with sapphire cabochon. The piece is from 1996, again, one of only 100 in platinum, with a matching clasp, which in this case is actually in white gold. The piece comes with a red presentation box as well. And lot number 2271 has a pre-auction estimate that puts the value of this watch in excess of $15,000 at the minimum. As you can see, Cartier is still all the rage, with various examples of iconic shapes, gem set pieces, variations of the tank. It's hard to remember a time. You have to think back a couple of decades to remember a time where Cartier was this popular in the world of watches, but its time has come back, and they have come back with revenge. Here is lot 2273. This is from that generation of that decade of Cartier Paris, CPCP, the private collection of Cartier Paris, Collection Privée Cartier Paris, the Tortue in the perfect two-hander version, in the time-only version, with an 18-karat yellow gold case that is 34 by 43 millimeters. The crown set with a sapphire cabochon, and the silvered dial has a guilloche decoration with elongated and stylized Roman numerals, with a railroad track for the minutes at the center that echo the tonneau shaped case, the secret Cartier signature at the Roman numeral 7, and the matching Cartier déployant clasp, which is unmistakable. Here is the hand-wound caliber 437 MC with a regulator that is heat blued and shaped like that wishbone initial stylized Cartier logo. A beautiful watch, very elegant, replicating a design from the Roaring 20s that is increasingly popular again, especially when it carries the signature of Cartier Paris. This is lot number 2273, a time-only Tortue from the CPCP collection. The pre-auction estimate puts the value of this watch right around 10,200 US dollars at the minimum. The next two pieces are absolute gems from the same collection, from the same shape, but these pieces have a particular story. In the 20s, Cartier had these single button, these monopusher chronographs in this tonneau-shaped case, Tortue case. And at the time, young watchmakers, François Paul Jean and Denis Flageolet, were doing work for Cartier, especially for their private collection, CPCP. They had formed this collective of movement making complications workshop that they called THA, Technique Horlogère Appliquée. Vienna Alter was part of the group at a certain point in time, but he was not involved with this particular project. But they had the idea, Flageolet and François Paul Jean, to approach Cartier to resurrect, to revive their single button, their monopusher chronograph from a bygone time. And they devised this particular movement as part of THA. The caliber was called 045 MC, and Denis Flageolet actually used this caliber in DB1, DB8 with the Arabic numeral 8, and later also in a modified version in DB8 written out as well. But it's a beautiful piece operated by that single button for start, stop, and resets. This is the version in 18 karat yellow gold. The case is 34 by 43. Has a 2-register layout with continuous running seconds at 6 and a 30-minute totalizer at 3. Breguet styled hands against a silvered guilloche decorated dial, Roman numerals, and all the hands are heat blued, which creates a lovely contrast with the silver dial and plays along beautifully with the sapphire cabochon of the crown. This is a piece from the very last year of CPCP's existence, 2008, lot 2274, Cartier Tortue Monopoussoir, single button Cartier tonneau-shaped chronograph from the CPCP collection. The pre-auction estimates puts the value of this watch in excess of $10,200 in US dollars. Next to it, at lot 2275, we actually have an even more desirable version of this watch in an 18 karat white gold case with an oversized Roman numeral 12 as the sole numeral on the dial. The rest of the indices are actually matching white gold beads, and the accents on the dial against the silver dial are rendered in blue, once again as if to match the heat blued Breguet hands, the heat blued chronograph hands, as well as the sapphire cabochon, which is set on the crown. You also have a matching 18 karat Cartier déployant clasp. The movement, of course, 045 MC, which is François Paul Jean and Denis Flageolet's recreation of Cartier's monopusher chronograph from the 1920s, and which is a movement that Denis Flageolet later used in De Béthune as well for his single button chronographs. This is one of the most desirable pieces from the CP collection, Collection Privée Cartier Paris, from 1998 to 2008, where Cartier wanted to present a collection that was at the crossroads of their iconic designs and the new developments in high horology. And it is an important legacy, even though it wasn't necessarily a resounding financial success at the time. And the monopusher chronograph, the Cartier Tortue monopoussoir, is one of the most important touchstones of that legacy, having linked us to at least two of the most important names that have set the independent watchmaking world ablaze in the last decade or so. And we're talking about François Paul Jean and Denis Flageolet of F.P. Jean and De Bethune, respectively. Not to forget their partner in crime, Vianney Olter, who was perhaps not involved in this project, but worked with them in THA, in Technique Horlogère Appliquée, in producing many important technical innovations. This is lot number 2275, the CPCP reference 2396 from 1999, the Cartier Tortue monopusher chronograph. The pre-auction estimates puts the value of this watch right in excess of $15,000 at the minimum. At 2283, we have Konstantin Chaikin Clown 2 Audacity. This is a very funky and fun watch with a unique expression of time. The goggly eyes of the clown indicate in their turn the hours and minutes at what are traditionally 10 o'clock for the hour subdial and 2 o'clock for the minutes. And the mouth serves as the aperture for the moon phase, where the tongue indicates the phase of the moon. This particular piece is actually executed in stainless steel and is part of a limited edition of 88 pieces. The 42 millimeter stainless steel watch comes with its full set of accessories, which includes the matching Konstantin Chaikin stainless steel buckle, his guarantee certificates, the product literature, presentation box, as well as outer packaging. And the piece is from 2021, and once again, is one of only, 88 pieces ever made. Has this lovely case back with a circus tent that is inscribed with the number of this particular watch in the series, and also embossed with Made in Russia This is the Konstantin Chaikin Clown 2 Audacity in stainless steel, 42 millimeters, one of only 88 pieces. Dancing eyes showing the hours and minutes, the smile indicating the moon phase. At lot 2283, the piece has a pre-auction estimate, which sets the value of this watch at the minimum in excess of 10,000 US dollars. I think I will present on two more watches and maybe cut it short tonight with your permission. I'm a little tired. Um, it is getting late at any rate. Let's do these three. In fact, the two H. Moser and de Bethune. Lot 2285 is a limited edition de Bethune piece. This is the DB24 Ti. This was actually de Bethune's first sports watch with this porthole designed bolted bezel, blacked out titanium case, a unique indication of the power reserve at around 12 o'clock through these cutouts. The picture is completed as always with the uniquely heat blued titanium elements, which includes the hands as well as the hour markers in this case, which in a certain way bolt down the chapter ring. A very striking blacked out dial as well. Very inspiring and unique watch. Quite a unit at 48 millimeters with a matching titanium buckle that is similarly blacked out. The de Bethune Campus limited edition in fact was only one of 10 pieces, so it's rather unique. Here you can see the self-winding movement by de Bethune, which is, as always, aesthetically and technically adventurous and quite an unusual sight onto itself, with a number of patented technologies by them. The DB24 Ti S5Z5 from 2008, the titanium sports watch in 48 millimeters by de Bethune, one of only 10 pieces, has a pre-auction estimate which sets the value of this watch in excess of 33,000 US dollars at the very least. We have at lot 2286 an early version of the H. Mose et Company Perpetual One. This was a perpetual calendar movement that was designed by Andreas Strehler for the company, and that won the Man's Complication Award basically as soon as it was released. They still use, by the way, a modification of this movement, just a slightly revised version of this movement for their perpetual calendars. So it has served them really well. This is the HMC 341. The current movement is called HMC 800. But it is based on the Andreas Strehler designed caliber, which won the Complicated Watch Award in 2006 at GPHG. It is a flash calendar which jumps instantaneously at midnight and at the end of the month and never shows an invalid date. At 9 o'clock, you have the power reserve. At 3 o'clock, you have the date. You have a micro hand that is right under the hand stack and which points to the month. Very discreet with this beautiful sunburst silver dial. This particular example is executed in 18 karat white gold with a 41 millimeter case. It comes presented on a leather strap with a matching 18 karat white gold Mose déployant clasp. The piece comes with its full set of accessories, which includes the original warranty papers, product literature, presentation box, and outer packaging. And this perpetual calendar, which is a very elegant and perhaps even simplified and purified presentation of the complication. Here's a look at the HMC 341 with the leap year indicator on the back. This is lot number 2286, the H. Mose et Company Perpetual One, a perpetual calendar in a 41 millimeter 18 karat white gold case with the prestigious and technically impressive, if also pure, movement designed by Andreas Strehler. Has an estimated value of $15,300 at the minimum via the pre-auction estimates. The last watch that I'm going to present on tonight, unless something comes through, unless one of you has a special request or a question, is lot 2287. This is an H. Mose tourbillon from 2014. the Venturer Tourbillon dual time. As you can see, it has kind of a stepped case, which puts an interesting accent onto the tourbillon cage. A skeletonized bridge, which gives you a relatively unobstructed view of the dynamism of that regulating device. There's an additional hour hand in red that can be used for travel time. The piece is rendered in 18 karat yellow gold, 18 karat white gold, the Venture Tourbillon, matching 18 karat white gold deployant clasp, the self-winding movements with a skeletonized rotor in pink gold. Again, in a 41 millimeter case. It arrives with its full set of accessories. This is lot number 2287. H. Mose et Company, Venture Tourbillon dual time in an 18 karat white gold case with 41 millimeter diameter, dual time function with the additional hour hand, and a tourbillon at 6 o'clock, which has a nicely skeletonized bridge so as not to impede your view of its workings. This piece has a pre-auction estimate, which puts its value right around 200,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is in US dollars 25,540. Thank you, everybody. I covered the majority of the lots from the first 80. This was the important watches auction that is coming up at the end of the month at Christie's Hong Kong. The auction is going to take place in Hong Kong on May 26th, May 27th, and May 28th. And in addition to some of the great pieces that I shared with you today, it also includes part of the so-called Triazza collection, which actually includes some of the rarest and most desirable vintage Patek Philippe pieces in the entire world. So check back tomorrow to see some of those. I'll be back presenting the rest of the auction. I'm sorry, I'm a little tired tonight, so I'm not actually stretching myself too thin for the entire 4 hours, but I promise I will go even longer tomorrow, and I look forward to it already. If you want to support the channel, you know how. You can always send in a super chat or a super sticker like Basil's Bezels did today, and I thank him. Thank you for everyone's support and presence. I really appreciate you all. If you don't follow me on Instagram, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of overlap between the two kinds of content. So check out the link. Hit the like button before you go. That helps a great deal already. And if you want to contribute to the channel so that it remains independent and autonomous, so that I can fully serve you and remain at your service, please feel free to contribute. The information is included in the video description. It is also right now rolling in the crawling ticker, and I have furthermore pinned the link into the chats. You can use Cash App, you can use PayPal. And if you join me at Patreon, you'll actually get some great value out of it, since I share at least 3 links every day as part of exclusive content that will direct you to watch deals online. And I always make a special recording for these. I always choose them very carefully. And as I go through each and every example, it ends up becoming quite an educational and informative journey as well. The next one I'm going to do, for example, is going to focus on different watches that have big dates, that have oversized date displays. So I'll go through why I chose each watch and what else is out there except for Lange, which has made it its own and which has kind of made it harder for everyone else to actually execute what was at one point a pretty common way of indicating the dates for showing the calendar function. Anyway, click the link and see the tiers for yourself. If you sign up, you'll receive exclusive content, and I always reward my most ardent supporters on Patreon, not only with extra content, but also with gifts. For example, Corrado Galizia has just won the last watch giveaway, which was for the last year's Seiko / Rowing Blazers collaboration. He got the one with the black dial and nautical flags as the hour markers. Great timing, as the new batch has just come out. I'll talk about them tomorrow as well. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, take care of yourself, wear your watches, and enjoy them. I'll see you in the next one. Adieu.